morning, Georg. Thank you very much for coming to Madrid to discuss about Nord Stream and other issues of European energy policy. Georg is the main researcher for Bruegel on energy matters. And my first question will be related to Nord Stream 2. I mean, this has been a huge discussion over these last years. Can you please tell us where we are now? What are the prospects for Nord Stream, and what are the different positions within European Union, but also the positions that has been somehow contaminated by the new, very much, aggressive stance by the United States? I mean, where are we now, and what do you think will be the next steps in this dispute?
Yeah, thanks, Gonzalo. It's always great to be in Madrid. And Nord Stream 2, as you know, remains a highly politicized issue. Currently, there are essentially almost all permits ready for Nord Stream 2 to be built. So the second line of the Baltic gas pipeline between Russia and Germany. The Danish permissions are currently lacking. And the state has changed quite a bit in the first half of this year, because the German government has always been of the position that Nord Stream 2 is a purely commercial issue, that there is 5 European companies that together with one Russian company, Gazprom, are going to build a joint pipeline together, and politics has to stay out of that. Now that stance has shifted in the beginning of this year, with Angela Merkel very clearly pronouncing that Nord Stream 2 also has a political dimension. And this acknowledgement has implications, because it means that the German government will not simply let Nord Stream 2 being built without any conditions, but that there will be some sort of deal being sought between Russia, the affected countries in between, and Germany, to make sure that all sides could somehow live with that. What is currently being under discussion is essentially what can we do with the transit countries. The transit countries are going to be the biggest losers of the Nord Stream 2 project, the current transit countries. So gas, about a bit less than a third of the gas is currently flowing through Belarus and Poland. A larger share, almost half, is flowing through Ukraine and Slovakia, and another third is flowing through Nord Stream 1. Now, for Ukraine in particular, Nord Stream 2 might be a huge blow, because it might imply that Ukraine will not only lose transit revenues in the order of, last year it was about $3 billion, but it might also mean that there is no more gas flowing through the country, and that will have also physical implications in terms of how can you supply gas to the eastern regions of Ukraine. Is it even still possible to get gas from the European Union if there is no more gas arriving in Slovakia? And given all that, the German government now takes a more conciliatory role, I would say, saying, yes, we have to discuss these questions. It's not just a commercial matter, but we have to discuss these questions.
Okay, we will profit from the occasion to have you here in order to introduce also these new measures taken by the European Commission and by the European Union regarding the new targets and the new climate strategy. I mean, where are we now in this regard, and how do you see this new strategy will evolve over the next years?
In the beginning of this year, the European Council asked the European Commission to draw up a new climate strategy for the EU. And we need such a strategy in Brussels for a couple of reasons. On the one hand, there is the European obligations towards the international climate process, which calls for a mid-century strategy. On the other hand, in Brussels, we just decided last month a new governance for the energy union, which implies that each member state will have to bring a national energy and climate plan and a long-term climate strategy to Brussels, and then there is some sort of European process to make sure that those national plans and strategies together add up to the European targets. which implies essentially that Europe also needs some sort of joint strategy to make sure that there is consistency not only between what the member states doing, but also in aggregate. Now, what is currently going to happen is there are different trends of work, and the picture is still a bit open to at which point in time we'll get which document. And I think it's an important opportunity also for the member states to get into this process to make sure that the process is helpful for what the member states have in mind, how they would like to interact more with each other. There, in the new governance proposal or in the new governance regulation, that is now an agreed text, there is, for example, one provision that there should be dialogues between member states on those strategies. So Spain with Portugal and France, for example, and Germany with its neighbors will be very important for. And what might come out of that is that the European Commission potentially, I think DG Climate will hold the pen of that, will come up in November, shortly before the COP and after the 1.5 degree report of the IPCC is launched, with a first sort of draft strategy. Then the member states will come with their national strategies. Then all this will be discussed together. And then the member states will come up with finalized strategies, and probably the European Union will also have to adjust their strategy. So you see it's quite a complex procedure. It's all not yet set out in written. The timelines are still not clear. And I think here procedures matter, because in the end, who holds the pen, who goes first and who goes second, will have an implication on also the distribution of powers in this important process. Now, I have two visions, one very dark vision and one very light vision. The dark vision that you could have is that there will be a strategy developed in a small room by some bureaucrats that is put on the table, and that has consistent numbers because it's based on the modeling that has always been used. But it's just underpinning the targets that we have, and it's not providing much value added apart of being a justification in a relatively bureaucratic sense. And I think in the current political environment, with populist parties all over Europe, with dissatisfaction with the Brussels bureaucratic approach, I'm not sure whether that's the right approach to develop a long-term climate strategy that will affect us massively. I mean, if you think 2050 net zero emission target means no more cars fueled by oil and diesel, no more heating based on gas, no more electricity produced from coal. So it will be a massive shift, and if you don't take the people with you, it will be quite difficult to get the policies needed for going to that transformation. Now, the light vision, or bright vision, that I could see is that this really opens up a process of discussion on the European level. There are elements to that, so there is some opening up of the stakeholder consultations and a bit of the modeling, but I think much more needs to be done here, and that's also a call for the member states to not develop those climate strategies in bureaucratic circles, but try to open up the debate to the wider audiences, because people need to understand that it's not worthwhile to build new coal-fired power plants, or that it's not worthwhile to invest in fossil fuel infrastructure in massive amounts.
Well, thank you very much, Georg. I totally agree with you on the need to support this public discourse and to develop a much more well-thought narrative. And here at Elcano, we will be glad to cooperate with you at Bruegel in order to develop such a discourse for our more, better thought public discourse and narrative on climate strategy. So thank you very much for coming.